I have crossed over to become a beta in ABO literature, and I have a charming omega male wife. The only downside is that the child in my wife's belly is not mine. Make a deal, become my brother's husband, and once he has the child, you will divorce immediately. The man is handsome, dressed in an expensive suit, fingers crossed, elegantly surveying the shabby rental apartment. I just opened my eyes, feeling faint from hunger, and not yet understanding where I am. I barely perked up at the mention of the word deal, thinking, let me sort this out. I am a woman, your brother is a man. And then he gets pregnant, and I have to pretend to be his husband. The man probably thinks I am toying with him, his eyes narrowing with indifference, and the atmosphere around us visibly thickening, making it feel as if a storm is about to break, leaving me a bit breathless. After a moment, he slowly spoke, 10 million. The drooping eyelids suddenly opened. And I pounced like a tiger, wanting to grasp the man's hand. Promise. I promise. The man dodged, standing up expressionlessly, his well-tailored suit accentuating his slim waist and long legs, exuding an air of nobility. From my perspective, the man's jawline was tight and smooth, his skin very pale, and the blue veins twisted up along his throat like a blue-blooded aristocrat in a movie. Before leaving, he looked down at me from a height, his pitch-black pupils resembling an unfathomable abyss. This is just a transaction, you should understand that you are merely a beta. I hope you do not fantasize about things that do not belong to you. 10 million. As I lay on the ground, I felt a sense of relief. Not to mention being a husband to a man, I would even be willing to be his father. At home, I rummaged through the cabinets and found a few buckets of instant noodles. After eating, I casually looked for an internet cafe outside. I typed beta into the search bar, and many web pages popped up immediately. Ignoring some strange websites, I browsed through them roughly. Beta, an existence like social worker bees, with basically no reproductive ability, and no gender distinction. Omega, there are glands at the nape of the neck, and there is a reproductive cavity. After being completely marked by an alpha, they can become pregnant. They have pheromones and a heat period, and can reproduce regardless of gender. Alpha, social leaders and rulers, can conceive offspring when combined with omega, possess pheromones and heat periods, regardless of gender, all have O. I frowned and read the phrase, can conceive regardless of gender, and all have O over and over again. My toe slipped, and the tilted computer chair immediately leaned back, making a bang sound. Amidst various strange gazes in the internet cafe, I wobbled up with my messy hair. Just then, my phone rang. I glanced at the note, 10 million, and quickly pressed the answer button. A deep, slightly hoarse voice came from the other end. How long until you come? The man's voice was very magnetic, with a ticklish sensation like a feather gliding over black silk, making my ears twitch uncomfortably. I'll come over first thing tomorrow morning, I said flatteringly to the invisible sugar daddy. While packing my things in the afternoon, I wandered outside for a bit. The streets of the city are roughly laid out like those on Earth. I have seen pregnant males and females more than once, all of whom have delicate features and a gentle demeanor. On the contrary, the people accompanying them, regardless of gender, are tall and exude a stronger presence. So this is what Alpha and Omega are like. I feel that my knowledge is insufficient, my worldview is shattered, and that phrase keeps echoing in my mind. Sir, the times have changed. The noble mansion is really far away, and there isn't even a bus stop. The next morning, after an hour of difficult trekking, I was cursing while carrying heavy bags, and seeing the long road ahead, I thought my leg might not hold up. Damn. Before I could finish my sentence, a luxury car rushed over with great momentum, kicking up a cloud of dust. After a sudden hard brake, the window slowly rolled down, revealing the man's handsome features. Get in the car. I quickly opened the car door and said, thank you, boss, you've worked hard. When I looked up, there was actually a boy sitting inside. His hair was a light golden color, and his features were delicate, giving off a bit of a mixed race vibe. He looked like a large BJD doll, and the kind I couldn't afford. He seemed a bit impatient and said, is this the person you're looking for, bro? Could this be the kid's mother? I looked at him with teary eyes, my voice trembling as I cautiously glanced at his flat stomach, then discreetly looked away. The air suddenly became quiet, followed by the sound of someone inhaling. "Brother," the boy exhaled, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes, and said, "Can I kill her?" "Luo Yu, I told you not to come," a cold voice from the man came from the front. The boy was a bit angry and wanted to say something more, but was interrupted by the man. "Lan Ling, he is Luo Shi's second brother." "All right," I readily agreed, "hello, second brother." He ignored me, glanced at my scattered luggage, frowned, and snorted coldly. Where did this beggar come from? Well, this person is not my 10 million, but the second brother of 10 million, and he is also an alpha. All the way, his expression was not good, and the dark aura around him seemed to solidify. But it didn't affect my good mood at all. In my previous life, I had to split a penny in half to avoid debt collectors. I ate pickled vegetables and steamed buns every day, worked odd jobs everywhere, and endured countless disdainful looks. Now, I have money. It's still 10 million. Following the principle that the financial backer is God, I wore a perfect smile and obediently went to the manor, obediently finished my meal at the marble dining table. I stayed obediently until the evening, until night fell. Then I grabbed the man's sleeve, which was Lu Yi's, and said, "Brother, where's my wife?" He lowered his head in response, and beneath his long, thick eyelashes were a pair of deep-set Danfeng eyes, with long, narrow tails that exuded an air of arrogance, as if to say, "Do not approach unless you are invited." Lu Yi brushed my hand away, took off his suit jacket, casually tossed it on the sofa, and said to me in a calm tone, "I don't like others touching me. There aren't many people in this building besides Lu Shi and the nanny Lu Yu, and I don't come back often. You live in the second room on the left upstairs. This building is somewhat absurdly large, and after Lu Yi and Lu Yu left, it was empty except for a ghostly maid. Hello, is anyone there?" I went upstairs, knocked on the door, and after receiving no response, gently turned the doorknob and entered. The furniture inside was as luxurious as ever, with a very large living room. I eagerly opened the bedroom door to see the sleeping area. "Who are you?" The person in front of me was wearing a white nightgown, with a stunning appearance. Their platinum blonde hair was slightly curled and spread out. With delicate features and a hint of light red at the corners of their eyes, they resembled a captivating beauty, more enchanting than mortal. I was taken aback for a moment. "Lan Ling, is this your room?" He frowned, looking somewhat displeased. "You are not allowed to come in." "Sorry, I didn't know someone was here," I scratched my head. "Then you'll leave first." "No," he lunged over, gripping my wrist, his red lips slightly pursed. "You will sleep on the sofa outside." His hand was cool, like jade, with a warm luster. As he spoke, he suddenly realized something and reluctantly let go of my hand. I pretended not to see and smiled, saying, "Sure. It seems he is my 10 million. It turns out that being a sycophant leads to a bad end, and being a sycophant for money is no different." This is the conclusion I reached after Lu Shi knocked over the 10th bowl. The rice on the ground was still steaming, and the scalding soup splashed onto my calf, leaving a red mark. "I don't like porridge, go get me something else." Lu Shi crossed his legs, lazily half reclining on the sofa, revealing a section of his snow-white ankle. "Huh!" I cursed inwardly, wondering why he didn't say that earlier. For Lu Shi, both the butler and I are people he dislikes. The butler is probably his father's spy or something. When I went to eat breakfast in the morning, the butler's expression was very strange. That kind of lofty disdain, as if looking at social trash, is something I find both familiar and somewhat annoying. How could the third young master be interested in you? You refuse to marry the alpha chosen by the master for you. The butler's face was filled with a look of pity for the unfortunate and anger for the unambitious. "It's probably because I have fair skin, good looks, and long legs. Beauty is hard to waste." I raised an eyebrow and smiled, my gaze sweeping over the butler's wrinkled face. "Ah, butler, you probably can't feel this youthful vitality, can you?" I said shyly, not surprised to see the old butler's face darken a degree. Seeing me bend down to pick up the shards, Lucy looked a bit unhappy. Why are you so pathetic? I heard from my brother that you are still a noble, yet you have no dignity at all. Noble. I suddenly looked up, my eyes shining with a captivating light, staring intently at Lucy. What do you want? He immediately became flustered, his hands instinctively curling up. Lucy, I coaxed gently, propping myself up on the armrest of the sofa, pulling him into my embrace, my voice lowered. What's the deal with nobles? For some reason, Lucy's porcelain white face suddenly flushed with a layer of pink, and his fingertips turned a faint red. He bit his lip and said somewhat angrily, if it weren't for your noble uncle, how would my brother choose you? Ah, I seemed to hear the sound of flowers blooming, wishing I could immediately be in love with my noble uncle. As for what Lucy started to say, dignity. No, if you've ever experienced having a leg broken over $1,000, you would understand one thing. In this world, besides being alive, money is the most important. After serving Lucy for almost a week, I suddenly discovered a fatal problem while searching for pregnancy menus online. Wow, Lu Yi didn't give me any living expenses, except that I can get 10 million after Lucy gives birth. Right now, I am broke. And that damn noble uncle really has no news at all. So I was about to make a call to discuss with my brother, but an accident happened. Lucy, his heat period has arrived. Late at night, I was drafting for tomorrow's negotiation. Lucy stumbled out of the bedroom, his face flushed and his body radiating heat. Lan Ling, I feel uncomfortable. He whimpered, constantly touching me all over. I hadn't even put down my pen when two long, fair arms wrapped around my neck. With warm and soft jade in my arms, I not only remained calm like Liu Xiaohui, but my head even started to ache a bit. Lucy, where's your inhibitor? I shouted. Where are you touching? I moved the date forward, he bit his lips until they turned white, trembling. I didn't have time to buy the suppressants. He unconsciously leaned into my embrace, as if wanting to merge with my very being. I kept pulling him outside, and suddenly felt a sharp pain in my collarbone. As I lowered my head, Lucy's long eyelashes fluttered slightly, and I could only see a swirl of hair on the top of his head. Lucy, are you a dog? Before I could finish my sentence, his cat-like eyes shimmered with moisture, heat wafting towards me. In the midst of our intertwined breaths, I felt a pain on my lips. Someone had bitten me. My first kiss. I was going to go crazy from the torment, pushing him down onto the sofa, panting. I said, wait, I'll call your brother. Lucy was drenched in sweat, his long eyelashes dampened, resembling butterfly wings that had been touched by water, drooping tiredly. There's another way, he said. Panting, temporary marking. But I am a beta. There is still a certain probability. He stared at me, then slowly turned his head, revealing his snow-white neck. As if a swan had lowered its proud head, submitting to me. How to mark again? My brain spun rapidly. It seems like biting the neck, right? I pressed my lips together and gently bit down. After a quarter of an hour, Lucy trembled and his body suddenly tensed up. Then he suddenly relaxed again. In that moment, I seemed to smell the fragrance of orchids after the rain, lightly wrapping around the tip of my nose, then dissipating. I fell to the ground, suddenly realizing that according to the worldview of this planet, a pregnant omega could not be marked by an alpha that did not belong to them. Moreover, she is a beta. So the pregnancy is fake. After coming to terms with it, my vision went dark, and I fainted from exhaustion. In a daze, I heard someone arguing beside me. Brother, didn't I say she was unreliable? It hasn't been long, and she's already been marked. She should be beaten up and then thrown out. Lucy is already awake, he said it was an accident. The man's voice was calm, but she did make a mistake. Half of the contract money will be deducted. What the hell? With my eyes closed, my consciousness was struggling desperately. If this were on Earth, I would definitely report Lucy for harassment. How could they still deduct my money? When I finally woke up, I found myself in a small room covered in dust. Is this how you treat your lifesaver? I covered my head. During an omega's heat, if there is no alpha's comfort or suppressants, irreversible damage can easily occur. Similarly, if a beta recklessly tries to mark an omega, their body will also be unable to withstand it. I feel so weak. I sighed deeply. And suddenly, there were a few knocks at the door. Have you rested well? Lu Yi, wearing frameless glasses and a well-fitted suit, exuded an air of noble arrogance. His voice had no inflection, as if he were an emotionless robot. The first clause in the contract states that under no circumstances may you harm Lu Shi's body, or else half of your compensation will be deducted. You currently have 5 million left. Seeing me struggling to get up to battle him, Lu Yi came over, leaned down, and whispered in my ear. I advise you not to think about breaching the contract. You can't afford the penalty. Who do you look down on? 100 million. I'm sorry, I was wrong, Daddy Gold. 1 week later, I had mostly recovered, and Lu Yi suddenly announced that he would hold Lu Shi's engagement banquet. As for the living expenses I mentioned, he didn't say much, just handed me a card. If you need anything, buy it yourself. Can I go out and get a part-time job? I asked excitedly, feeling like I was about to waste away here. After all, I had crossed over with great difficulty. I should at least go out and have some fun. Unexpectedly, Lu Yi was not as straightforward as before, and his attitude was somewhat ambiguous. Let's talk about it after the family gathering is over in a few days. He put down the documents in his hand, his gaze sharp and profound. Lan Ling, what kind of world do you think this is? I didn't react in time. Lu Yi looked at me deeply and then said, I don't like your eyes. What a lunatic. At the dinner party, I stood in the corner cursing Lu Yi when a young man suddenly approached me, grinning and asking, Hey, are you the servant here? I impatiently tugged at the bow tie tightening around my neck and casually replied, No. This guy's suit is something I can't get used to at all. The young man chattered. Then how did you get in? Without a master's guidance, we beaters can't get in at all. Master? I raised an eyebrow, my expression somewhat strange. What a strange play. Isn't this to be expected? The nobility and the wealthy are basically all alphas and their omegas, and if a beta wants to get ahead, it's best to find an alpha as a master. And my master is not bad, at least he doesn't have any strange quirks. Just that when he gets angry, he uses a whip on me. He shrugged and showed me the red marks on his arm. Intertwined, rising and falling, very ugly scars. I was stunned. I had clearly seen more terrifying scars before, but these marks made me feel a bit nauseous physically. Ah, my master is calling me. The young man hurriedly ran to the tall alpha, slightly lowering his head, hunching his shoulders, and smiling ingratiatingly at the people around him. His master patted the young man's shoulder hard, causing him pain. And the corner of his mouth twitched slightly before he continued to laugh as if nothing had happened. This scene made me a bit dazed, and I didn't notice that I bumped into someone when I turned around. Ah, what are you doing? The red wine from the glass spilled onto the woman's expensive dress, and she let out a piercing scream. You damn beta, do you know how expensive this dress is? The gazes of those around were drawn over, malicious, indifferent, and mocking. Whose servant is this? So lacking in manners. Like trash from the slums. Even a beta doesn't know how to get in here. The woman angrily said, What kind of look is that? Who allowed you to look me in the eye? She raised her palm to strike down. In that moment, the sounds around seemed to be sealed off by a layer of membrane. Everyone became blurred, and even the woman's hand moved in slow motion. Across the crowd, my gaze met that of Lu Yi, who was standing on the high steps. I suddenly understood the answer to that question. What kind of world do you think this is? Survival of the fittest, with clear class distinctions. I pressed down on the woman's arm and flashed a brilliant smile. With a crisp sound of slap. The woman covered her face, unable to believe that the trash in her eyes actually dared to slap her. I silently rolled my eyes, thinking, Ah yes, 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 you are all the sons of wealthy families, high and mighty noble alphas, while I am still a descendant of the socialist dragon. I casually tore off the bow tie that was choking my neck, grabbed a handful of fallen hair, and from a distance, flashed a provocative smile at Lu Yi. The woman was soon escorted out by Lu Yi's butler, and he immediately announced that I was Lu Shi's husband. The people below all had expressions as if they had seen a ghost. As if the world was about to end in the next second. Didn't the building say it was promised to the general of the GU family? How could they be interested in this beta? I heard she's a fallen noble with an alpha uncle. What good is that? With her bloodline, she must have been driven out. The women were whispering and pointing at me, their fighting spirit rivaling that of the old lady at the village entrance. That kind of gaze, as if a flower was stuck in cow dung, made my scalp tingle. Lu Yi leaned against the armrest. His profile was beautiful, with a high nose and a strong aesthetic appeal. Do you still need to go out to work? Of course. I looked at him in confusion. Is it reasonable for a social bully to revolve around one person all day, barely saying a few words? He suddenly turned his head to look at me, and the distance was a bit close. I could even see his long eyelashes, and a red tear mole at the bottom of his eye. Still don't understand. Maybe if you flatter me instead of working, you'll make money faster. He quickly figured out my weakness. Money is a good thing, but you need a life to spend it on. I smiled and said, let's just work, it feels more reliable. Okay. He parted his thin lips and uttered a word. But you can't use the car here from now on. Lu Yi straightened the curve of his lips, just walk down the mountain. I silently giving him the finger in my heart. After sending out dozens of resumes with no response, I hurried down the mountain, deciding to try finding a coffee shop first. After all, I have plenty of experience with odd jobs from my past life. Sorry, the coffee shop owner shook his head, we're not hiring. Seeing the owner ignoring the help wanted sign at the door, I put on a smile and said, boss, can you let me give it a try? The owner took a sip of coffee and looked at me with some disdain. Look at that place across the street. I looked up and wow. Omega coffee shop experience. The dazzling flashy pink almost blinded me. Why does it look so much like a maid cafe on Earth? Is it already this competitive? I looked down at my wrinkled clothes and disheveled hair from rushing for an hour. There's no comparison, definitely no comparison. Boss, can I borrow your restroom? Fine, the owner pointed in a direction nonchalantly. Just leave after you're done, we're not hiring. In the bathroom, I washed the slick sweat off my face with clean water, casually pushing my long bangs to the side, revealing my smooth and full forehead. In her violet-like beautiful eyes, it seems as if infinite vitality is bursting forth. The wrinkled shirt sleeves are rolled up to my elbows, revealing a section of my fair and slender forearm. The person in the mirror has a very slender figure. A refreshing short haircut, and when they smile, they have two sharp canine teeth, exuding a youthful innocence. After going out, I gave a sincere smile to the astonished store manager. Have you considered it? For delicate and weak omegas, a non-threatening beta like me might be more welcomed by them. The implication is that it's not necessary to please alphas to make money. Wealthy omegas also have a significant market. After work, I rode my electric bike, driving up the mountain with bags in tow. What can I say? One thing I particularly appreciate about this world is that the tips are incredibly generous. The exquisite older sister, with her slender fingers dyed with red cardamom, gently placed the cash in the pocket of my chest, exhaling softly. Are you coming again tomorrow? I'll order you. Although the tone is a bit strange, the money is quite generous. I asked my boss for an advance on a week's salary, bought a small electric scooter, and casually went to the market to buy some vegetables. Then I knocked on Lu Shi's bedroom door while holding a large bowl of milky white crucian carp and tofu soup. He has been resting these days and hasn't really shown up. The door was opened, and Lu Shi was wearing a white nightgown with a luxurious lace collar, looking quite empty. It seems that due to his poor health, he has lost a lot of weight these days. His face is pale, and his waist is a bit too thin, as if he would float away with a gust of wind. He looked up at me with a bad expression and said, "What are you doing here?" I innocently raised the soup in my hand, still steaming, with smooth tofu cubes mixed with snow-white fish meat, looking very tempting. Lu Shi bit his lip, slightly tilted his head, and his ears turned red. He seemed a bit annoyed and said, "Why do you look like nothing is wrong?" Well, I blinked, a bit confused. For example, he seemed to grind his back molars. And those peach blossom eyes with a hint of red shot a fierce glance at me. With a bang, the door was closed. The wind that was raised blew my bangs away, and I stared at the soup in the bowl, feeling a bit regretful. "Are you going to drink it?" "I simmered it for 2 hours. If you don't drink it, I'll give it to the butler." The door suddenly swung open, and someone quickly took the bowl from my hands, then closed the door again. At 11 o'clock at night, I turned off the lights, hugged a pillow, and curled up on the sofa to watch a horror movie. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared outside, followed by the sound of a car turning off. "Big brother." I tilted my head to look at the man who appeared at the door. Lu Yi was wearing a black coat, tall and slender, with a suit jacket draped over his arm. He frowned at me, surprised that I was still awake so late. "Big brother, sit down. I've made you some hot fish soup. I've been simmering it for a long time." I warmly invited him to sit down and ran to the kitchen to heat up the leftover fish soup and bring it out. Lu Yi looked at the fish soup on the coffee table with a blank expression. "Can you cook?" "Yes, it's really delicious." He finished the fish soup, glanced at the snacks on the coffee table, and said to me, "Don't eat too much at night, it's hard to digest." I was taken aback. The young master was quite health conscious at such a young age. At that moment, Lu Yi coughed and suddenly asked me, "Didn't you use the car from the garage today?" "I didn't use it. Didn't you say I couldn't?" He looked at me again, his voice very magnetic. "You can go to the garage and find one yourself. As for that electric bike." He paused and said, "I don't want to see it in my garage." I was wondering how Lu Yi changed genders. It turns out it was just a case of obsessive-compulsive disorder. Well, my several thousand yuan electric bike does feel a bit out of place compared to a tens of millions yuan luxury car. Then I'll drive that most eye-catching red sports car tomorrow. As I was planning my happy life for tomorrow, I suddenly felt a chill running through me. Looking down, I realized Lu Yi's expression was frighteningly dark. He grabbed my hand and pulled me onto the sofa. Like a large carnivorous animal, his eyes dark and heavy, he slowly tightened his grip on my wrist. He asked word by word, "Why do you have alpha pheromones on you?" Maybe I accidentally brushed against someone on the way. I suddenly realized that today, that big sister seemed to have touched my neck when I bent down to put down the coffee. Wow, such a good-looking person is actually an alpha with O. Lu Yi shook his head, his gaze cold. "Try lying to me again." "But I'm a beta. And alphas don't like my type. So how could I possibly have pheromones left on me intentionally?" He didn't say anything, and I continued to argue. "Don't worry, bro, during this 1 year of the contract, I absolutely won't mess around with anyone else. And I don't like alphas at all." Lu Yi lowered his eyelids, his thick eyelashes hiding the emotions in his eyes. After a moment, he straightened up and looked at me with an ambiguous expression. "You better." The next morning, sunlight streamed through the gap in the curtains and hit my face, making my eyes hurt a little. I instinctively wanted to block it with my hand, but my fingertips felt a cool touch, a silky smooth texture that slid through my fingers like water. I unconsciously touched a couple more times and heard a grunt from my arms. Suddenly opened my eyes. Lu Shi was wearing a silk white nightgown, with his entire face buried in my arms, revealing a small swirl of hair. "Lu Shi, what's wrong with you?" I sat up with a headache. After that last incident, I developed a shadow over the idea of embracing Lu Shi. Lu Shi casually played with his platinum blonde hair, his bright crimson eyes staring directly at me. I felt a bit cold at night. Is it wrong to want to hold someone while sleeping? A bit cold. I silently looked at the air conditioning set to 16 degrees in the room. How come I remember it being 26 degrees before bed? Forget it, I won't talk to you anymore. I scratched my messy hair. I'm going to be late for work. Lu Shi quietly sat there watching me busy, like a well-behaved ragdoll cat. I suddenly felt a bit reluctant, gently rubbing the top of his head with my hand, "Hey, do you want to go out and play with me?" He subconsciously rubbed my hand, looking a bit forlorn, "But omegas can't go out, it would be dangerous." "Who said that?" "We have at our shop." "Ah, wait," I realized. Who knows if the girls coming to the coffee shop are really girls, or just alphas like yesterday. How about coming to our shop to hang out? Our manager is super strong. Previously, someone tried to get handsy while I was serving coffee, and when they saw my displeased expression, they angrily shouted, "You're just a beta, it's lucky someone even likes you." I looked at the steaming coffee in my hand, just about to give that person a coffee-flavored bath experience. The manager behind me rolled up his sleeves, a tall guy with a strong build, and grabbed that person's collar. "Dare to cause trouble in my shop? Want to step outside and settle it?" That person immediately backed down and ran away in embarrassment. "Do you want to go?" I asked Lu Shi with a smile. He gently nodded, pulling on my sleeve with a bright smile, his eyes lighting up little by little, as if brilliant sunlight had fallen into them. "Okay. Hello. Store manager." I greeted the store manager, and let Lu Shi sit in a spot a bit further inside, shielded by green plants. It was just within my line of sight, and he could see me as soon as he looked up. "Hey," the store manager said, absorbed in his game without looking up, "what's going on, is this family?" I was busy making latte art with the coffee in my hand. I brought my little brother to play. The rose shape was formed, and I handed the coffee to Lu Shi, casually pulling the curtain by the window, as I remembered he wasn't very good with sunlight. Classical music floated in the warm little shop illuminated by sunlight, and Lu Shi sat in a corner hidden by plants, resting his chin on his hand, his gaze fixed on me. Eventually, the store manager couldn't stand it anymore and took the opportunity to teach Lu Shi how to play the game when there were no customers in the shop. As they played, he became unhappy. "Lan Ling. Your brother has really never played games before. He's so good, he's stealing my kills." I wiped the water from the cup and turned to see Lu Shi pouting his lips, smiling like a little fox. "Manager, it's you who is too weak." Then, amidst the manager's venting roar, Lu Shi laughed even more happily. After work, I drove that flashy red sports car, with Lu Shi, this stunning Omega, and received the most attention I've ever had in this life and the last. "That's really nice." However, once we got home, Lu Shi fell ill, and the doctor from the manor kept circling around him. I stood there helplessly, a bit confused. What's wrong with Lu Shi? The butler shot me a disapproving glance. "Young master, Lu Shi is not well and can't stay outside for too long." "Who told you to take him out behind my back?" I looked at Lu Shi's pale little face and felt guilt almost drowning me. Unexpectedly, Lu Shi suddenly struggled to reach out a hand from the bed, gently holding my fingertip. "I'm very happy, thank you, Lan Ling." He rubbed my fingers gently, his eyes curved with a smile. Just then, Lu Yi hurriedly returned from outside, and our gazes inexplicably met across the crowd. He glanced at the tips of my fingers intertwined with Lu Shi's and silently walked over. As soon as Lu Shi fell asleep, I immediately said, "I'm sorry. Taking someone else's younger brother out, and then getting sick is really frustrating. Why don't you deduct my pay?" I couldn't think of a punishment that would better express my apology than that. Lu Yi didn't say anything for a while. I felt someone touch my head. The warmth of the fingers was comforting. "Lu Shi will be fine." We have always wanted to protect Lu Shi over the years, but unexpectedly, we ended up confining him. This time, it was Lu Shi's own issue for not telling you the truth about his condition. And Lu Yi seemed to sigh. "He looks very happy." Lu Shi's body took a week to recover, and I didn't dare to take him out. The days spent working in the coffee shop were quite enjoyable, listening to the manager boast and avoiding various strange flirtations from the girls, just like that. "Hello, here is your coffee." "Sorry, I can't add you on WeChat during work hours." Skillfully handing over the coffee. Hearing the sound of the wind chimes, I instinctively looked up. Ah, it's actually an acquaintance. Lu Yu was being pulled by a girl, walking in impatiently. I said I don't like drinking coffee. And I don't want to see that cute-looking staff member you mentioned. Lu Yu called out twice, and without paying attention, our eyes met. Yo! I greeted people straightforwardly. Lu Yu looked at me, then at the girl holding her phone wanting to add WeChat, glanced a couple of times, and suddenly shouted angrily. Lan Ling, did you mess around behind my brother's back? Which eye of yours saw that, and do you think my relationship with your brother is like that? He strode over, grabbed me, and pulled me outside, like a protective husky, breathing fire everywhere. I greeted the store manager, and followed him out. In the alley by the street, Lu Yu chattered away, accusing me of being sorry for his poor brother. You treated Lu Shi like that, and you don't want to take responsibility. I listened for almost half an hour and started to feel a bit annoyed. I smiled at him. Why don't you believe me? How about we solve this in another way? Whoever wins gets to decide. Lu Yu looked a bit confused. What way? I grinned and tilted my head, saying, a fight. Although alphas in this world are physically stronger than betas, who says that fighting is all about strength? In my previous life, when I was in a brawl, Lu Yu hadn't even been born yet. In the evening, I sat on the sofa while Lu Shi was applying medicine to my wounds, gently dabbing the cotton swab on the cut at the corner of my mouth. He frowned and said to Lu Yu, second brother, what's wrong with you? An alpha hitting a beta, are you serious? And on the face, what if I get disfigured? Which side are you on, anyway? Lu Yu, with a face full of colorful bruises, was as angry as a pufferfish. She just has a cut on her lip, but I'm the one who is in the worst condition, okay? And why did you help her treat her wound first? Who is your brother? Lu Shi glanced at him lightly and said, go find a doctor yourself. I'm going to sleep. Only the two of us were left downstairs, and the air became a bit awkward for a moment. After a while, Lu Yu suddenly spoke up, you're quite impressive. I thought you were just a pretty boy. Who is the pretty boy between us? Seeing that I didn't speak, he leaned in a bit closer, touched his nose and said, how about we find a time to fight again? I will win you. I looked at Lu Yu's overly flamboyant face, and found his hopeful little eyes among his swollen features that couldn't swell anymore. After a moment of silence, I nodded with some difficulty and said, okay. Never underestimate the determination of a teenager in their rebellious phase, especially someone who has lost a fight. Lu Yu, this is the 10th time today. I really don't want to fight anymore. I held the towel and wanted to reason with the person in front of me, and I need to take a shower now. Lu Yu didn't seem very satisfied with my words and stared at my towel for a while. Then let's wash together, and after that, we can fight. Although I knew that for alphas, there is no distinction between male and female for betas, this still sounded quite tempting. Lu Yu was still eager to try, when suddenly someone grabbed the back of his collar, and a deep, slightly tired voice sounded. Lu Yu, go get me a glass of water. Big brother, why are you back? Isn't the company very busy lately? Lu Yu went to get the water, puzzled. Lu Yi pinched the bridge of his nose, quietly glanced at me, and his excessively long eyelashes cast a shadow under his eyes. Go take a shower, he said softly. When I came out after taking a shower, I found that Lu Yi was actually watching TV. I walked over and realized it was the mindless variety show I had watched before, where the people were laughing and doing some nonsensical actions. He saw me come out and slightly furrowed his brows. Why didn't you dry your hair? I have short hair, it dries pretty quickly. I said nonchalantly with a towel on my head, then went to the kitchen to grab a bottle of ice-cold cola. As I turned around, a shadow enveloped me. Lu Yi lowered his head, and took the ice cola from my hand. Although his face still showed little expression, I inexplicably felt that he was a bit angry. Come here, I'll dry your hair. His voice was a bit hoarse, as if he hadn't rested for a long time, yet it was unexpectedly magnetic, with an indescribable charm. I hesitated for a moment, but still ran over eagerly and sat down properly. How should I put it? No one has ever dried my hair in my past life. I used to envy those who watched TV alone, while having their hair done. It seemed quite interesting. The hairdryer made a whoosh sound as Lu Yi's long, fair fingers wove through my hair. I sat cross-legged on the sofa, comfortably squinting my eyes like a cat basking in the sun. How is it? Is the temperature okay? I nodded vigorously, yes, it's good. Just as my hair was about to dry, I suddenly remembered something. Lu Yi, didn't you say you don't like others touching you? On the first day I came here, Lu Yi wouldn't even let me touch his suit. Why is no one speaking? I leaned back against the sofa cushion, my eyes wide open as I looked at the silent Lu Yi. After a while, Lu Yi. He replied softly. You're blushing. Slap. I got flicked on the forehead. Lu Yi seems to be less busy these days and often comes back. One day, while I was lying on the sofa watching a horror movie, I didn't notice that someone suddenly appeared behind me. Startled, my hair stood on end, and when I turned around trembling, I found it was actually Lu Yi. Big brother, why didn't you say anything? Lan Ling. He supported his forehead, mumbling something repeatedly, and collapsed onto the sofa. I wanted to lean in to listen, but was suddenly pressed back against the sofa's backrest. The man leaned down, gently rubbing his face against mine like a puppy, his messy hair tickling me a bit. Itchy, itchy, itchy. What are you doing? Lu Yi slightly closed his eyes, his eyelashes fluttering like a fan. And an unusual flush on his fair face. Lu Yi, are you drunk? Lu Yi didn't respond, he just placed his hand on my eyes, resting it on my forehead, and let out an almost inaudible sigh. Your eyes, why are they always in my dreams? They make it impossible to find peace. After he finished speaking, he collapsed into my arms, his warm breath swirling in my neck. I pushed him away, and Lu Yi slumped weakly to the side, a few strands of hair on his face, his eyelashes slightly damp, looking inexplicably aggrieved. Hey, Lu Yi. I tapped his face, and Lu Yi frowned unhappily, slightly opened his eyes, glanced at me sideways, and silently turned his head away. Oh, pretending to be asleep with me, huh? Then I'll leave. Goodbye. I pretended to get up, but before I could move, my hand was grabbed. Lu Yi opened his eyes, looking at me with no expression, and his voice surprisingly sounded a bit down. You don't like me. You only like Lu Shi. My wrist was painfully squeezed, so I squatted down to look at Lu Yi's flushed face and rubbed his head several times. Are you a child, still vying for affection? The next day when I went downstairs, Lu Yi was already sitting at the dining table having breakfast. With standard dining etiquette, he was a graceful nobleman, every move like a richly colored oil painting. There was no sign at all that someone had spent the night on the sofa. Last night, he looked up at me, his expression very calm. I went into heat. Phut. I suddenly spat out a mouthful of milk. Lu Yi instinctively handed me a handkerchief and said, I took the suppressants. It's just a physical issue after taking it. I feel like I've been drinking. Can it be like this? I looked at him with interest and asked, do you remember what you said last night? Lu Yi was taken aback, lowered his eyelids, and said, I don't remember. I silently looked at his flushed earlobes and meaningfully said, oh. Then I noticed that his entire ear was red. After work, I sat alone on the steps at the door, watching people rush home, the golden sunset covering the entire street outside the cafe, like a nostalgic old photograph. It's really nice. I rested my chin on my hand and elongated my voice. What's so good about it? A shadow was cast over me as Lu Yi looked down at me against the light, casually sitting down on the dusty stone steps beside me. I thought for a moment and said, when I was a child, I lived in a very lively tenement building, you know, the kind where many families lived together, looking shabby, with only 2 bathrooms on each floor, at the end of the corridor. The soundproofing in the house was very poor, and I often heard the neighbors discussing what to eat for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Even so, I was still quite envious. I sighed. Because in my home, I was all alone, empty and cold, with no one to talk to. I turned my head to look at Lu Yi, who was quietly watching me, the warm light of the setting sun reflecting gentle colors in his eyes. Lu Yi, I need to take some time off. Today at work, a strange call came in. Is this Miss Lan Ling? The young man on the other end said, your uncle passed away yesterday, and in his will, you are the sole heir to his estate. The Count said in his lifetime that he would no longer pressure you, and he hoped you could come back to see him, but it took us a long time to find you. I'm sorry. Luo Yi, you don't know, I'm a rich person now. I can buy a car, a house, and even a yacht. I looked at the sky and murmured to myself, but I found my vision becoming increasingly blurry, and something fell down my cheek. In a daze, I was pulled into someone's arms. And I could smell the fresh scent of lavender laundry detergent on the man. That was when I accidentally threw Luo Yi's expensive suit into the washing machine during my last laundry session. Someone was gently patting my back, and a warm breath surrounded me. I said hoarsely, sniffling, I'm not sad, I just feel very regretful. I didn't have a mother in my previous life, and my father committed suicide by jumping off a building, leaving behind a pile of debts when I was 10 years old. For over a decade of solitude, I once thought I would live like this forever. Perhaps it's just a matter of fate, I murmured. Lu Yi reached out his hand and pressed the handkerchief against my nose. Breathe hard. Huh. I wiped my nose clean, stood up, and patted my butt. Let's go, it's time to head back. How long until you leave? Next week, I guess. Lu Yi drove in silence for a while, then suddenly said, Luke's eyes medication has been developed. But he needs to go abroad for treatment, so he'll leave next week. Really? I said happily. Then he can go fulfill his dream. Lu Yi raised an eyebrow. What dream? To be a street artist on Art Island in Alaska. Lu Yi frowned. No way, I can't agree to him wandering the streets. It's not really wandering, I said weakly. But he does tell you everything. After Lu Yi finished speaking, I awkwardly scratched my chin. The light shone from the other side, casting a faint glow on Lu Yi's long and thick eyelashes, his profile exquisite as if crafted by God. Lu Yi might come to talk to you about some things during the remaining time. Have you thought about what to say? Lu Yi hinted at something, glancing at me sideways without revealing any emotion. Of course, I will speak the truth. I looked towards the distant mountains. What? Are you afraid I will hurt your brother? No, Lu Yi pondered for a moment. I am afraid you will hurt yourself. You seem to care about nothing, but in reality, your heart is softer than anyone else's. Clearly living in a quagmire, yet always wanting to treat others gently. Lan Ling, he sighed, that's why I said I don't like your eyes. Because they make people feel heartbroken. After returning home, Lu Yi hurriedly ran out, and after greeting Lu Yi, he shot me an angry glare. Why didn't you reply? You came back so late. Sorry, I said awkwardly, my phone ran out of battery. Seeing that Lu Yi was about to say something else, I looked at Lu Yi's back, who was walking ahead without turning around, and shouted, Big brother, wait for me. After catching up with Lu Yi, he expressionlessly helped me push the door open and said, go in. Okay. When it was time to eat, Lu Yi excitedly brought me a bowl of soup from the kitchen. His eyes bright, he eagerly watched me drink it and said, how is it? This is my first time making soup, and I followed the method I found online. I carefully took a sip, thinking about how to compliment him. Suddenly, it felt like tons of salt exploded on my taste buds. It was extremely salty. I looked at Lu Yi, who was waiting for praise, silently swallowed it down, and then felt too salty to say anything. How does it taste? Lu Yi asked. Next to me, Lu Yi glanced at me while putting on his coat, casually taking my bowl, his Adam's apple moving slightly. Brother. Lu Yi exploded, why are you using the bowl that Lan Ling drank from? You should get your own bowl. Lu Yi ignored him and simply said, too much salt. Really? Let me taste it. Lu Yi reached for that bowl. Lu Yi didn't give it to him and poured the soup into the trash can, saying, it's too salty, it's not good for your health. At night, when going to bed, Lu Yi, wearing pajamas and holding a big box, obediently sat on my sofa bed. Looking at me eagerly. I had just finished showering, and seeing this situation gave me an instant bad premonition, making me even want to wash again. "What's wrong?" I asked awkwardly. Lu Shi curved his lips at me, extended his fair little arm, and suddenly dumped out a thick stack of colorful notebooks and folders from the box. "These are my properties, including villas, apartments, and commercial buildings, large and small, distributed across dozens of countries. These are the contracts for my stocks and funds, excluding the luxury items, diamond jewelry, and gold bars in the bank. I also have multiple yachts, luxury cars, and various industries I've invested in." After saying that, Lu Shi paused, his peach blossom eyes staring intently at me. While observing my reaction, he cautiously and slowly moved closer to me. Like a kitten unfamiliar with people, it seemed that any sudden movement would scare it away. "Lan Ling," he said, propping himself up on the bed, looking up at me seriously, "I like you. I have never liked anyone before, and I don't know how to express it well. So in putting everything I have on the table, would you consider marrying me? I'm willing to give you everything." He blinked. "Even if a beta is infertile, it's okay, we can adopt one." "Lu Shi," I scratched my head, squatting down to meet his gaze, "I'm glad you like me. In my past life, I hid like a mouse, not to mention being liked. It was already good enough not to be disliked. So, to be fair, I am very grateful for Lu Shi's affection. To be honest, if a rich woman had offered to support me in my past life, I would have packed my bags and left without a second thought. But Lu Shi, I don't want to deceive you. I am very clear that my feelings for you do not belong to love. If I really agreed, this deception would create an insurmountable rift between Lu Shi and me, ultimately leading to more pain." Lu Shi looked at me with red-rimmed eyes and said, "Is there no chance at all? I can give you 10 million, or even more." "Lu Shi," I smiled helplessly, "that has nothing to do with it, we just aren't suitable for each other." Upon hearing my words, Lu Shi bit his delicate white lip, his eyes blinked twice, and tears rolled down like round pearls. As he cried, he suddenly lunged into my arms, gripping my collar tightly, shaking all over as he soaked my clothes with his tears. "Lan Ling," he said, sobbing, "many people like me. I am so good-looking and so wealthy that even my teacher praises me as a genius in art. You don't like me because you have no taste. Well, it's my lack of taste." I patted Lu Shi's back and said seriously, "One day, you will meet someone who truly likes you, and whom you also like." Lu Shi choked up, wiped his tears, and said gloomily, "Then it won't be you." After he finished speaking, he suddenly stood up and said, "I'm going back to my room to rest, and," he said fiercely, "I will not bless you." "Huh?" I looked up at him, and Lu Shi slammed the door shut. On Monday morning, Lu Yi drove me to the airport. Lu Shi left a day earlier than I did. Before going in, he gently hugged me. "Be happy, Lan Ling." "Okay." I smiled and patted his head, "Take care of yourself." After a while, Lu Yi couldn't stand it anymore and pulled him away. "Aren't you going to catch your flight?" "Brother, you are really stingy." "All right, I'm going in now, you can go back." I took the suitcase from his hand and smiled as I said goodbye to him. "Then you," he said, unusually nervous, "will you come back?" "Of course, don't you still owe me 5 million? I pushed the suitcase a few steps, and caught a glimpse of Lu Yi standing there all alone in my peripheral vision. Lu Yi. He was taken aback for a moment, then opened his arms to catch me as I lunged at him. In that moment, the warm breath mixed with the scent of sunlight from his body rushed towards me. Lu Yi let out a light laugh and gently pulled me into his arms. "Safe travels." "Okay." 26. Conclusion, 5 years later. Lu Yi, hurry up, I'm going to be late." In front of the mirror, I anxiously tied my tie, feeling a bit of a headache. "Who told you to do that last night?" "What happened last night?" The man walked in slowly from outside with a plate of breakfast. He placed the plate on the table and leaned down to give me a light kiss on the face. He also tidied up my messy tie while he was at it. "As your husband, I have the right to enjoy the pleasures of marriage. Are we talking about the same thing?" I looked up and glared at him. Lu Yi was adjusting my collar, his cold fingers inadvertently brushing against my cervical spine, causing a sharp sting. I instantly became alert and covered the back of my neck, because beaters cannot be marked, and Lu Yi had a grudge against that area. It often gets bitten and leaves marks. Seeing my reaction, Lu Yi turned his head and lightly coughed, the corners of his mouth slightly lifting. "Are you ready?" He took my hand, "for today's speech?" "Of course." I raised an eyebrow and smiled, the first beater in the Federation to run for Congress, I'm ready to make history. "Safe travels." Lu Yi leaned down and gently placed a kiss on my forehead. "No matter what, I will always be by your side." Lu Yi looked at me with a tender gaze, his eyes shining like stars. I suddenly remembered when he proposed to me a year ago, at that grand fireworks party. I asked him, "How long have you liked me?" "From the first sight," he sighed. "From then on, it was etched into my bones, unforgettable for a lifetime." At that moment, my heart suddenly felt incredibly soft. The painful memories from my past life seemed to shatter like broken glass, dissipating in an instant. "Okay." I smiled with my eyes curved. "No matter what, we are always together." Extra, Luo Yi's perspective. From the first sight of her, Luo Yi knew that this person was different. In the dilapidated room, filled with poverty and despair, she was like a ball of fire. In her violet, beautiful pupils, an unstoppable vitality was suppressed, as if it would burst forth at any moment. Incompatible with this decayed and fallen world, incompatible with those soulless beaters, incompatible with him as well. But what is even more curious is the desire to get closer, yet not daring to approach. I don't know how many times I've dreamed of those eyes in the middle of the night. Lu Yi silently sat up in bed, his mind constantly recalling the moment she grabbed his sleeve, those eyes. And that phrase, "brother." How is that person doing? The next day, while handling documents, he casually asked his personal assistant. "Who?" The assistant looked a bit confused. "Lan Ling." The assistant suddenly realized, Miss Lan Ling is getting along quite well with young Master Lu. Young Master Lu really enjoys the soup made by Miss Lan. Lu Yi paused with the pen in his hand. "Can she still make soup?" "Yes, I heard it's very good." Lu Yi remained silent, and the assistant waited for a while before the phone rang. After Lu Yi hung up the phone, he expressionlessly said, "Prepare the car." The person in front of him had already woken up, and Lu Yi leaned against the door, not knowing how long he had been watching. The first clause in the contract states that under no circumstances shall Lu Shi be harmed, otherwise half of the compensation will be deducted. He heard his own cold voice, which concealed an anger that he couldn't hide despite his efforts. He didn't know if it was because of Lu Shi or something else. Seeing her struggle to get up from the bed, Lu Yi walked over, whether out of anger or as a threat. But he still didn't want to see her harm her own body. All along, he had not been someone who easily experienced emotional fluctuations. Because everything he wants will be there, whether it's money, power, or the admiration and affection of others. But this time is different. For the first time, he truly possesses what he desires, yet he doesn't know how to approach it. To seize her, to break her spine, making her see only him. He can't do it, he is unable to. In the end, he can only hold her in the palm of his hand, placing her at the tip of his heart. Like the most loyal believer, he devoutly protects the deity he longs for the most. In the end, his wishes are fulfilled. Lu's perspective. Lu, you are very talented, but unfortunately, you are an Omega. What a pity. It's a pity that the body is still not well. Since childhood, the most common phrase Lu Shi has heard is, "What a pity, you are just an Omega." At first, he would argue back, crying and throwing tantrums, wanting to attend the same school as his brothers, wanting to play basketball, wanting to go anywhere he desired. But gradually, he became silent. His father was a very traditional noble. He hated all people and things that went against the rules. After his eldest and second brothers were beaten by their father for taking him out to play, unable to get out of bed afterwards, Lu Shi finally understood that the problem was not with his brothers, nor with his father who wouldn't let him go to school. The problem was with himself. He was too naive, overestimating his ability to challenge this world. Lu Shi, your body is not suitable as an omega. Your only purpose is to marry. Although General Gu is 20 years older than you, the Gu family has always been our family's ally and is the partner for this election. Do you agree? The fine lines at the corners of the man's eyes are dense, and his pupils are murky and sinister. Like this old house that cannot see the sunlight, it suffocates people. Lu Shi is dressed in expensive clothes, like a beautifully wrapped gift. He remained silent, his gaze hollow. Then he was interrupted. Lu Yi stood in front of him, the only heir of the Lan family proposed to Lu Shi a few days ago. The man was somewhat surprised. That old-fashioned noble, the Lan family. I remember that person is a beta. He looked at Lu Shi and asked word by word, really? Lu Shi felt a bit nauseous under the heavy gaze. He let out a retching sound in disgust. His nominal father squinted at him and said, pregnant. Really reckless. Don't let the Lan family know for now, let's talk after the election. I need the support of the Lan family. Lu Shi, do you want some porridge? The beta in front of him, with slightly pointed tiger teeth, said tirelessly, the soup in his hand exuding an enticing aroma. I said I don't want it. He knocked over the bowl and chopsticks, hot soup splashing onto the person's fair ankle, turning it red. The person said nothing, just bent down to pick up the broken pieces on the ground. From his angle, the person's eyelashes were long, their fingers slender, even whiter than the porcelain bowl, very beautiful. She quietly picked up the pieces, not uttering a single curse. He suddenly became a bit angry, feeling how pathetic he was, which made him seem aggressive instead. Aren't you a fallen noble? But unexpectedly, it seemed as if there was light shining from this person's eyes. As she leaned on the sofa and looked down, Lu Shi seemed to see a sky full of stars. Brilliant, so dazzling, so free. It was unforgettable at first sight. Lan Ling, I want to go to Alaska Art Island to be a street artist. Then go ahead. Lan Ling, who was peeling carrots, said without looking up. But I'm an omega. I can only stay at home, I can't go anywhere. Who said that? Lan Ling said indignantly, no one is born to do only one thing. In our hometown, it is advocated that everyone is born equal and free, and can do whatever they want. But federal law stipulates that omegas and betas have many restrictions in life. Lu Shi said expressionlessly, the world is inherently unequal, some people's destinies are determined at birth. Then break it, Lan Ling said seriously, if there's a room without sunlight, open a window. If there's no path forward, create one. Do not go gentle into that good night. Do not go gentle into that good night. Lan Ling said with a smile. Why not hold on a bit longer? Perhaps there will be changes in the future. What changes? Lu Shi asked curiously. Well, Lan Ling stroked his chin, for example, one day I might become a big shot, and could change the law. Ha, you're lying. Lan Ling is a big liar. You actually have a bit of faith in me. Big brother, you know father won't agree to you being with Lan Ling. He needs you to raise his next heir. Lu Yi looked at the documents in his hand, feeling a bit tired. The workload had been too much these days. But he still looked at his brother and said, father has no chance left after all. My plans over the years have not been in vain. Now he's just an empty shell. He can't control us anymore. Once you're better, go do what you want. Everything will be taken care of by your big brother. Brother. Luke's eyes' lazy expression vanished, and at that moment, he suddenly exuded a captivating aura. Don't let Lan Ling down, or you will regret it. Of course, Lu Yi raised an eyebrow. Don't keep calling her Lan Ling every day. Remember to call her sister-in-law in the future. Lu Shi choked for a moment. It's still early.